Hello, how are we all doing, people? Hope we're well. In today's video, we are back for the new domestic season championship 2026-27 season predictions. Yes, that's right. In this video, we are predicting how the table will look come May 2027. And of course, don't forget that there is the slight adaptation to the playoffs this season. From now on, it's now no longer just the third placed, fourth placed, fifth placed, and sixth placed teams against each other. Now there's what's known as the playoff eliminator. And what that means is the team that finishes seventh and eighth get the chance to be part of the playoff conversation. And so as a result, it's a bit of a complex process. But what that basically means and what that should mean is more competition come the end of the season when teams are hovering around 10th, 11th in the table. They might have a chance of sneaking into that 8th place spot, and then they play a decider, qualify, sort of knockout playoff game against the team in 7th, and then it goes to the semi-finals, and obviously after all of that, it goes to the final as usual at Wembley. So yeah, it will be really interesting to see if those playoff knockouts sort of system end up making a big difference to how we see the playoffs and how exciting it is. But we're going to get into all of that with our club by club assessment of how the seasons will pan out. So let's go alphabetically, shall we? As we've got it here on the list. And I'm going to rank it, as you can see here, on this tier list. If you disagree with any of my predictions, be sure to get in the comment section. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me what team you would have in that position instead. And also tell me what your 1 to 24 is for the EFL Championship 2026-27. So we'll start off with Birmingham City then, who, of course, ended up having a pretty okay season. At one point last season, I think some people thought they were going to have a historic campaign in 2025-26 because obviously with the ownership as it is there, they've got a lot of ambition. They were trying to look towards potentially finishing in the playoff places. In the end, they didn't quite make it. 4 places off in 10th position. But what do I think for Birmingham City in 2026-27? Well, looking at some of their signings, they've brought in the likes of Christopher Lund Hansen from Palermo, Lucas Vazquez from Anderlecht for about £3 million. Kyogo Furuhashi as well has gone out to LA Galaxy, so he won't be there at the start of this season. You've got the likes of James Beadle, who's come in from Brighton, good pickup on loan. Permanent, previously at other clubs in the Championship, but now he's on loan for Birmingham City. And Kai Wagner as well has departed to Philadelphia. The acquisition of Dale Fry is a really good bit of business from Birmingham City. He's a very solid Championship centre-back. John Solis as well from Girona, defensive midfielder. Jonathan Panzo has left the club, as has the likes of, Menzi Mazwi from last season. The likes of Daniel Issache has gone out on loan to Tamworth. So some interesting moves from Birmingham City. Ultimately, their biggest error, in my opinion, was the decision to get rid of John Eustace, however many seasons ago that was now, because he was doing a fantastic job with them and they weren't patient enough with him. You see what he's now done at Derby County. He's been absolutely brilliant in the Championship, John Eustace, and Birmingham City, with a little bit of patience, might well have just done a bit better. But no, 10th spot for Birmingham City is still a very good achievement, and they were probably very pleased with that. But as I said, with the ownership, the money being pumped in, Tom Brady will want ambition and he'll want to push forward this season. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they get on, I think, in the 26-27 season. Chris Davies, a solid manager, and Tom Wagner, the chairman, will be looking to, make some moves in this window. And as I said, a few interesting signings. They've obviously got that first game of the season in the Carabao Cup against Swansea City. And then they face an interesting test in the first round of Championship games away to Sheffield United as the 5:30 kickoff on Sky Sports. But whether or not Birmingham City will get off to a good start is irrelevant. What we're predicting here is, will they have a good season? And I think they will. I honestly think they're going to be in and amongst the playoff push because I really am impressed by the way they run the club. Now, obviously, the money helps, but some of their signings have been very, very clever. And so I believe Birmingham City are going to finish in 6th spot. They're going to improve 4 places from last season, and they will put themselves in that playoff eliminator spot. Okay, moving on to the next team. It's Blackburn Rovers. Now, Blackburn, they are a team that has to be said a lot of people are concerned about at the moment. They haven't had the most enthralling or exciting summer window. And with Blackburn, you just worry that they're starting to decline a little bit. I mean, most seasons they do enough to steer themselves away from danger, and they're such a big club that haven't dropped down into the 3rd tier for a while. But you just worry that they're going to be in and amongst the conversation this season. There's a lot of frustration going on at Blackburn. Obviously, now Tony Mowbray has gone back, so he's a cult hero for them. I just look at their squad and I think I'm concerned. I mean, a really poor season last season, finishing 20th. They've got to do better than that, you would hope. But I just don't think they will, in all honesty. I think they're going to really struggle. Again, when you look at some of their signings, they're not terrible, but they don't give you much confidence. I mean, the likes of Jaden Fevrier from Stockport, decent player, but Musa Barrage from last season from Yverdon, okay, fine. Nathan Redmond on a free transfer back in March, fine. Like, some of those moves over last season, some of their performances, they're okay, Blackburn, but 20th still not good enough, and I think it's just going to get worse for them. So I'm going to go for Blackburn to get relegated and finish in 23rd position. Sorry, Blackburn Rovers fans, a historic football club in the EFL, but I think you're going to be playing League One football next season. Okay, next team is Bolton Wanderers, who of course won the playoff final last season. Fair play to them. Didn't expect it from them. They did very well to get past Stockport. It's interesting how Bolton approach this season, because in previous years they've struggled to really maintain themselves for more than about 2 seasons. But I think going into 2026-27, again, looking at some of their business that they've done, it doesn't fill you with the most confidence. I mean, it's definitely like smart moves, the likes of Jazika Lazarbel as a right mid free transfer. It feels like a sort of low risk signing. You got obviously Kilian Dong from Augsburg. How good will he be up front? But then the likes of Sam Inwood out on loan to Swindon, Richard Taylor out on loan to Bromley. Lucas Stevenson is a really good bit of business. I will say that. I think he's got a lot of promise. They got them for about 700k, but he's had a lot of good sort of hype at Liverpool. Lucas Stevenson, the right midfielder. And then you look at everything else. I mean, Akin Famiwo from Hull, left back. Okay, interesting. Kyle Dempsey's gone out on a free transfer to Port Vale. You've got the likes of Ben Davies from Rangers, David Watson from Kilmarnock. So there's a bit of tapping into the Scottish Premiership. I'm not feeling confident, unfortunately, Bolton Wanderers fans, that it will be enough. I think it'll be tight. Don't get me wrong. They'll put up a fight, Bolton. But I'm going to go for Bolton to be another team going down this season in 22nd spot. Sorry, Bolton Wanderers fans, but that's what I'm going for. We move on next to Bristol City. Now, Bristol City have certainly had a good summer. Obviously, the way they ended last season was a bit concerning. Really poor form, and obviously bringing in Roy Hodgson for that final sort of stint was an odd decision, to say the least. Bringing the guy out of retirement just for the sake of a few games was very strange, because I didn't actually mind their previous manager, to be perfectly honest. I know they weren't doing what they wanted to, and they had a bit of drop off, but it felt very strange. This summer, though, they've looked quite good in pre-season so far. They smashed Newcastle, which is actually the result that came just before the sacking of Eddie Howe. Well, not the sacking, I should say, the departure of Eddie Howe, who decided he couldn't do any more with this club, and after 5 years there, has moved on. But fair play, Bristol City. They played well that day. And so a few exciting signings for the Robins, it has to be said. Not too bad in terms of their business so far. Dominic Ballard, a very good signing from Leyton Orient, scored a lot of goals in League One last season. Jamie Knight-Lebel has gone out on loan to Motherwell, but then you've got the likes of Laurent Tolage from Plymouth, decent striker. Will he be able to score the goals in Championship level rather than at League One? We'll see. But Bradley Collins, another free transfer as a goalkeeper. You got the likes of Lumley going out to Sheffield Wednesday, but then the other way, signing of like Lissav Naif Isat from Maccabi, again a centre back. Don't know a lot about him, but could be okay. Josh Stokes gone out on loan to Reading. You got Jed Wallace. Jed Wallace is a very good bit of business from the Robins. He was just a cult hero, wasn't he, for Millwall? And had a bit of time at West Brom. He just knows how to do well in the Championship. So as a free agent move goes, that is a really good bit of business by the Robins. Gibson Yar has also come in from Volendam. You got Sam Greenwood. You got Ross McCrory going out to Rangers. Sam Tickle is a nice little pickup. He's got long arms, but just like Mr. Tickle, I'm sure he'll be trying to, keep those shots away and stretching those long arms. But it's a very good pickup. Very solid keeper from Wigan. Harry Cornick's gone and been released as a free agent. The same goes for the likes of Sam Morsey and Mark Sykes. Sinclair Armstrong has departed, so he's gone out to Göztepe. You've got the likes of Yeboah, Ephraim Yeboah, who's gone out to Ashton United. Ollie Thomas has gone. So there's a lot of players that have been cleared out. And fair enough, Leo Pekova's gone out on loan, has Luke Skinner and Ollie Thomas. But some good acquisitions, I have to say, from Bristol City. And it's just going to be really interesting to see how they do this season. I don't think they'll get promoted. I would be surprised if they were even in the playoff push, to be perfectly honest. But they will definitely be, on the fringes, potentially, of those playoffs. And obviously they play tonight against Walsall in the Carabao Cup, so we'll see how they get on there. But I think, they're an interesting team. They certainly are an interesting little unit of a team, and we'll be interested to see what team they put out actually tonight, because obviously they've got their opening game in the Championship, and it's a tough game against Millwall, who obviously did really well last season. But the appointment of Michael Skubala is a really interesting one, because obviously he did so well for Lincoln City last season, get them promoted. The journey he went on with the Imps, he just improved them in 2 seasons. It was fantastic. Came in around sort of November time, I think, November-December time of 2024, and just really did improve them. It might have even been the year before, actually. But yeah, I think it was possibly the year before, 2023. And it took a bit of time, it took a bit of patience, but gradually they got better. And unlucky to end the season not in the getting automatic playoff push at the end of that 2023-24 season, and then 24-25 a much better season for them, and then obviously last season it was an incredible season, history breaking stuff for Lincoln City, up into the Championship for the first time in a long time. So can he step up? It's one thing getting a team promoted from League One. It's another thing keeping a team up in the Championship. It's going to be a big challenge. It's going to be another thing getting a team going well in the Championship, like Bristol City. Obviously, it's going to be a big challenge now for Lincoln City without Skubala, but can Skubala knock it with the big boys in the Championship? It's going to be really interesting at Bristol City. But like I said, some of those signings, especially the likes of Jed Wallace, and probably as also the pickup of Dominic Ballard, some really sensible moves there. So I think Bristol City will have a good season, but not quite enough to get in that playoff contention. So I'll say Bristol City finish in 12th spot. So that's where we're going to put them. They'll be in that playoff chasers, but not quite make those playoffs. Next up, we've got Burnley. Now, Burnley were absolutely abysmal last season in the Premier League. They've seemed to be having a pattern of this where they can't, be touched in the Championship. They're absolutely clear of everyone. They're breaking records. They're winning leagues. And then when they get to the Premier League, they are making records, but not the ones you'd want to make, and just stinking it out. And Scott Parker, he got a lot of criticism in the Premier League last season. And he just didn't quite know how to adapt to that league, and they just weren't doing well at all. They weren't playing well enough. They weren't scoring enough goals, and they were conceding too many. It's simple as that. And now they're in the Championship again, and they have a few players that they had last time they're in the Championship that they don't have anymore. The likes of Maxime Esteve, the likes of James Trafford, who of course is now at Leeds. So it's a tough one for Burnley. It really is. I don't think it'll be as easy for them to get promoted this time around, with all the change going on, and with Scott Parker no longer there, you haven't got someone who knows how to get promoted necessarily. Now, I think Burnley will still be in the conversation, don't get me wrong. Like, their squad should still be good enough to be in that battle for playoffs at least, if not automatic. But I think it's going to hurt them, that last season that they had. And, Nicky Hayen has come in, formerly managing the likes of Antwerp. Sorry, not Antwerp. Club Brugge. He played at Antwerp. Or he actually didn't play a minute for Antwerp, but he's managed the likes of Club Brugge and Genk. So it's a bit of an unknown quantity for him. But, managers who've managed in the Belgian league, gone to Burnley, you saw what happened with the likes of Vincent Kompany, right? Obviously, I don't know if he went to Anderlecht after Burnley. I forget now which way around it was. But point being is, this could well still be a good season for Burnley. But I think they're going to be not quite good enough this season to get in the automatics. They will make the playoffs, though. So I'm going to say they finish in 5th position. Okay, moving on to the next one. And this is Cardiff City, back in the Premier League after their promotion last season. Fair play to them. They were very, very impressive. I mean, for so long, much of the League One season, it looked like they were the nailed on league winners. But fair play to Lincoln City, who just stayed with them and pipped them right at the end of the season. Cardiff, I don't know. It's really hard with Cardiff because, again, a bit like with Lincoln City, how do you know whether it will translate? All the momentum that you get from such a good season. But when you're up against tougher teams that punish you, unlike some of the teams in League One that might not take those chances, you're not going to get away with that in the Championship. There's a lot of good players in this division. It's why it's one of the most exciting divisions in the world. And the Championship is ruthless. There's so many games, 46 matches. You have to have a good squad for this level. And I just don't know if Cardiff are quite there yet. I mean, their head coach, Brian Barry Murphy, did an incredible job last season. But I just don't know. It's a really, really tough one. It is really interesting. They've got that opening derby against Wrexham on the Monday Night Football, which is going to be a cracker. So that if they can win that, that'll give them a big boost to start off well. But I don't see a season of staying up, unfortunately, for Cardiff. I know a lot of people predicting Championship tables this summer are putting Cardiff a bit higher because they have the ambition. They have some good players. But I don't know. I just think I look at their squad, there's a lot of young players in there. Perry NG is a very good player, very good defender. And he could very well do well again for Cardiff. Ruben Colwill, very solid. Chris Willock, all these players are very encouraging. And then I look at the forward line and I'm not that enthralled. I mean, Keon Atete, Ollie Tanner, David Turnbull, Callum Robinson. I mean, I'm not so sure. So I'm a bit on the fence a little bit with this Cardiff City side. Hate to say it, but that's just how I'm feeling right now. And I might be, completely getting this wrong. And if you are a Cardiff City fan, then get in the comments. Have I had an absolute stinker here? But I'm going to go with Cardiff to finish bottom in 24th place. It's going to be tight. Like, I don't think any team will be cut adrift this season like a Sheffield Wednesday because of the financial restrictions on them from their mess going off the pitch. But obviously there is one team starting, which we'll get to this season on minus points. But in terms of all throughout the whole season, I don't think there'll be a team cut adrift in the relegation battle. I think it'll be tight this championship season. There's a lot of really good teams, and it's going to be really competitive. So Cardiff won't be disgraceful, but I think the other teams will just be slightly better. So sorry, Cardiff. I'm going to go with you finishing bottom. We move on then to the next team, which is Charlton. Charlton Athletic are a hard team to work out, really, aren't they? Because they ended last season really, really poorly. Obviously, manager Nathan Jones, who knows a thing or two about the Championship. I don't always think that he can necessarily do that well in the Championship. I think he's really struggled at that level to push on, because Charlton fans would want that, but I'm just not so convinced. I mean, they've got a lot of players from League One last season. Obviously, they bought a lot of Luton players with Nathan Jones, ex-Luton, but they just, I don't know, their end of form season concerned me. I think they finished 19th in the end, which is not great. Do I think they'll be close to relegation this season? Yeah, I think they will, probably, and I think it won't be much different from last season. So I've put Charlton in 20th. I think they'll do enough, don't get me wrong, but I think they will be part of that relegation scrap. So that's where we're going to put Charlton Athletic, the Addicts. Next up then, we've got Derby County. Now, Derby County are a really interesting one. As we mentioned earlier, John Eustace has done an incredible job, just simply incredible job with that club. How he's transformed them from going to be a team that don't usually get in the playoff conversation to last season where they just were fantastic, really, really strong. And you know what? If it wasn't for the final sort of period of the season, they could have definitely got in the playoffs. I think they'll count themselves a bit frustrated they didn't in the end. And obviously, when you look at their team, when all's said and done, it's just the manager is a big factor. They finished 8th. That would have got them playoffs going into this season. So it's going to be interesting to see, can they finish top 8 again? I don't see this changing, to be honest. I think they stay where they are. They're a very well-run club, good manager. Some of their signings, I mean, they're okay. They're not incredible. But, the likes of Bobby Clark is a good pickup. Let's not beat around the bush, from Red Bull Salzburg. Very, very promising central midfielder. Charlie Taylor on a free from Southampton. It makes sense. It's logical. And obviously as well, Philip Bilbija from Paderborn. So, interesting. Not as much action in the window as I thought they would do, but they've still got some solid players. The likes of Carlton Morris. I think they've called back Sammy Smodics, if I believe so. I believe that's the case. So I think they'll have another good season. And I think they'll just squeeze in to those playoffs in 8th position. Okay, moving on to the next one. And it's Lincoln City, who we mentioned earlier. Now, if Lincoln City can stay up, it would be quite the story, wouldn't it? I mean, it's a miracle that they're even in the Championship. But what a season it was. And that has to be a factor. They were so good all season. Especially, the way they ended it, wrapping it up, winning the league with games to spare. It was just sensational, really. And now Skubala's gone, you are a bit concerned about, how do they cope with life in the Championship? Now, they've got, obviously, good players. Can they make up that step, though, from League One to Championship? Because there's not many Championship experienced players at that football club. And that's, unfortunately, the reality. I really would love it. I would love it if Lincoln City can stay up. But it's not about can they, it's will they. And I don't know, to be honest. Obviously, finishing first will give you confidence, but when Chris Cohen and Tom Shaw are coming in as a pair, you're thinking, that's a bit unconventional. Will it work? I don't know. It's really tricky. It's really tricky. I think most people will have them going straight back down to League One, which is of course a shame. Am I going to have that? Well, they picked up the likes of Callum Elder from Derby on a free, so championship experience. That's good. And they've also got in Andre Kubis from Romanian club, I believe. Cluj, I think that's correctly pronounced. So again, not massively hyped by their transfers, and obviously they've lost the likes of Jack Moylan to Cardiff, um, the likes of Eric Ring to Kilmarnock, JJ McKinnon has gone. It's a tricky one. I mean, obviously the likes of I don't know. There's a few players there that I look at and think not a bad player there. Solid for the championship. For instance, Tendai Darikwa, dependable right back. You've got players like Rico Hackett, knows how to score goals. Conor McGrandles, solid player. Tom Jeffries, James Collins up front. And of course, Rob Street, who, has played with the likes of Crystal Palace before, not in the Premier League that much, obviously, but Freddie Draper, Ben House. So, some good players there. But is it championship quality? Are they going to do enough to stay up? Well, I have my 3 relegated teams. So, as you can see, I am backing them to deny the doubters. And I think it will be very tight between them and Bolton. But I'm just swaying towards Lincoln City to make history and stay up in the championship. Incredible scenes if that happens. Right, moving on to Middlesbrough. Now, Middlesbrough, of course, came this close to Premier League promotion, but they lost in the most expensive game in football against Hull City. Now, of course, you could argue they shouldn't have been there, Middlesbrough, because they lost their playoff semi-final, but we all know what happened. Spygate, and Southampton were rightly thrown out of the playoffs, so Middlesbrough get the opportunity of a lifetime handed to them. But ultimately, when you look at Middlesbrough, they had a really good season in general, but from where they were, they'll be disappointed because for so much of the season they were in those automatics and they've dropped off. They bottled it again. I mean, how many times have we said Middlesbrough are in the contention for automatics? I remember the 14-15 season, right? Do you remember that when Watford went up and we got that second automatic spot? And Middlesbrough were in that second spot for ages and ages and ages. And in the end, the teams that go up are Norwich, Watford, and Bournemouth. Middlesbrough couldn't even get through the playoffs. I mean, they just find this way to mess it up, and I feel for them. I really do, because they were one of the best teams in the league last season, without doubt. Players scoring goals, playing well. They demolished Watford in our last away game of the season, 5-1. But they've just got a lot of good players. I like a lot of their players. I like the way they play. I like their manager, Kim Helborg. But now, after the mess that Rob Edwards created with him going to Wolves, Kim Helborg's got a full season, right? Presuming he doesn't go for whatever reason. He's got a full season to really get this side pushing towards promotion. Now, it's tough because there's a lot of big teams in the division this season. So, is it a guarantee that Middlesbrough get automatic? No, absolutely not. Do I think they will? I think just about. It will be very tight, but I back Middlesbrough. I back the manager. I think they've got good players. Morgan Whisker, quality player. You look at some of their business, they've not done a lot of moves. I'll be honest. They've not done a lot of moves because it's always tricky when you get to the playoff final and then you lose. The season after can often be a bit of a drop-off. And I take that on board. But at the same time, I'm still backing them to do well. I'm still thinking they know how to win games. They've got that streetwise element added to them from all the work that Michael Carrick did with them. Obviously, Rob Edwards' situation was a bit of a mess. But Kim Helberg did really improve their form when he came in. It's just the way they ended the season was so disappointing. They were such a good position for so long, and then they just really fell away the last, few matches where it mattered. So I don't know. It's tricky. It is tricky, but I think Middlesbrough, they brought in Max Arfston from Columbus. They've got in John McLaughlin, which, you know, he's an old goalkeeper, but he's a bit of experience at the end of the day. Former Sunderland man. They've brought in a real favourite of the World Cup in the summer for USA, Sebastian Berhalter, which I think is a really good bit of business in defensive midfield. He was one of the star players really for the US. Will Lancashire is a really good signing from Tottenham for 10 million. Not a terrible fee, and he's very highly rated. Kyle Joseph from Hull, decent bit of business. Dale Fry's obviously gone, but they've obviously let go of Daniel Barlaser to MK Dons. They brought in Miles Pert-Harris on the wing from Oxford United. And of course, the biggest loss will be Hayden Hackney. He was probably the league's best player last season. He was just sensational. So this is what I mean. How he didn't get promoted was tough on him. But now he's gone to Everton. Obviously, that's going to be a big loss for the Borough, but I still think they'll have a good season. I look at their squad and I think they've got goals in that squad. Jeremy Sarmiento as an example, really good bit of business coming from Brighton. He did really well with Ipswich, so you think, yeah, makes sense. So I've got Middlesbrough in second, but I think it's going to be really tight in the race for the playoffs and the promotion. Now, Millwall, where are we putting them? Because obviously they overachieved last season. There's no doubting that. Not many people had them where they finished, which is remarkable when you look at it from Alex Neil. Like, fair play to finish where they did in third, not just in the playoffs, in third. They were this close to automatics. Alex Neil, fair play. And for that reason, I think we have to consider them again because he's just really impressed. Now, there will be a bit of a drop-off probably at the start of the season, I expect. Because of the expectation, it will weigh heavy. And will they get to those same levels? It's going to be a big challenge for Millwall. But they're a well-run club, and they've got decent players. So it'll be interesting. I've got them finishing in the playoffs, though, ultimately. I think a lot of people have them lower down, but I back them to do the job. I'm going to put them in fourth position. I think they'll drop by one place from last season. I think, honestly, they are a solid team. They do need to score more goals, maybe, sometimes, but they find ways to grind out results. So if they can make the Den a fortress again, I think it could be a special season. And they will be in the playoff places. Now, we move on to the next one, which is Norwich City. Now, Philip Clement was inspirational, in all honesty, when he came in. They just wish he would have come in sooner because the form that Norwich showed at the end of last season was just top tier. And a lot of their players, really, really impressive. So, it pains me to say it, but I think Norwich are going to have a solid season. Will that mean playoffs? I don't know. It's a tricky one. It feels like a tight one to call. But with Norwich, they are going to do well this season. As I said, I think Clement's a really, really decent manager. You look at, some of their changes in terms of transfers going into this season. And it's interesting. What does Clement do? Because some of these transfers, Sam Field from QPR, good player. Andre Brooks, good player. But can you take them to the next level? Can they now jump further into those playoff conversations? Well, we'll have to see. But I don't know. I think it's very interesting. They have got players that can hurt you. There's no doubting that. Pape Diallo. You've got players like Cordoba, who was quite okay for Panama. Obviously, they struggled at the World Cup generally, but Mohamed Traore, good player. So, yeah. I mean, Kenny McLean is still there. Incredible stuff. There's some good players there, but can they sustain it to get playoffs? I think they just miss out. It will be tight, but they'll just miss out in 9th position is what I'm going to go for the Canaries. Okay, moving on now. We now have Portsmouth. Now, Portsmouth didn't have a good season last season. It has to be said. They didn't exactly do too well. And the previous season, they'd only just stayed up, I believe, if I remember rightly. So I thought they would push on last season a bit more, but they just didn't quite. And they were a bit underwhelming. Can they push on this season? I don't think so. I think John Mousinho is a good coach, but 18th last season. You look at some of their transfers they brought in this summer. They're not filling me with massive confidence. I mean, they haven't spent a lot of money. I mean, Rocco Shine, who knows how well he'll play. Odin Bailey from Stockport. I just don't know. I don't know with Portsmouth, and it's going to be tricky to know for sure. So I think they're going to be in around the conversation for a relegation scrap, and I'm going to put them in 19th spot, so just ahead of Charlton. So now we move on to the next team, which is Preston. Now, Preston, for me, every season I look at them and think, they don't get me going. They don't get me excited. They just make me a bit bored. And last season, they've had a lot of strange seasons, unsatisfactory seasons, but not sensational and not terrible at the same time. So it's a weird one with Preston. They finished 14th last season. They got 60 points, but there were so many teams around that point tally at the end of the season. Bristol City 62, Sheffield United 60, Preston 60, QPR 58, Watford 57. And that was from, 12th, 13th to 16th. So it's tough with Preston how to read them, but I think they're going to have a bit of a drop-off this season. I think those signings didn't excite me that they've made, and as a result, I'm worried for them. I am worried for them. I mean, look, the one thing I will say is Alfie Devine is a divine signing. That is, listen, fair play, because he's a good player. But Paul Heckingbottom really needs to get them to the next level. Can they get at least mid-table? Because at the moment, I'm not sure they will. Lee Nichols, not a bad bit of business, but ultimately, I still think they need to make more signings. Otherwise, I think they are going to slump. And as things stand, I think that is what's going to happen. I'm going to put them in 18th. I think they'll just about be okay, but they'll flirt with the relegation scrap. Now, we move on to QPR. Now, QPR last season were an also quite weird team to understand. They had their moments where, kind of at the end of the season, they played quite well in certain games. They absolutely demolished Watford. I went up to that game at Loftus Road, and we were shambolic. We were shambolic for the last 10 matches of the season, but they were good in that game, QPR, even if we were giving it to them on a plate. And Richard Kone is just, what a player. What a player he is. Incredible stuff. And the story he's had with him, previously being homeless, it's just inspirational. It really is. But QPR, can they be an inspiration this season? I don't really see it. I think they could finish anywhere between 10th and about 18th. It's really hard to call with QPR. I'm going to go right in the middle. I'm going to put them 15th. I just think, they've got some good players, but their defence, I don't know if I trust it. So it's a really tricky one. Julian Stefan, I think, will finish 15th with QPR in 26-27. Okay, Sheffield United is up next. For this one, I've gone with 16th. I think Sheffield United were really quite underwhelming last season. Now, obviously, when Chris Wilder comes in, he steadies the ship a little bit, but they still weren't incredible, let's be honest. Across the season, it was still quite an underwhelming season. Now, Patrick Bamford scored quite a few goals, but I still am concerned about Sheffield United this season. I don't think they're in a position to mount a playoff push. So I think they're going to stagnate again. And unfortunately for them, it's not going to be much better than last season. At the end of the day, last season, they finished 13th. I think they're going to drop just about 3 places into 16th. It's not going to be a great season, I'm afraid, Sheffield United fans, in my opinion. But, let's see how they do. Because, again, you look at some of their moves this season. Interesting. I mean, Ben Purchase from Bournemouth, I've not heard a lot about him. Matt Doherty is an interesting one. Obviously, Championship legend. Is he a bit past it? Probably. But obviously, Andre Brooks is going to be a big loss for them. So I think I'm going to go with 16th spot for the Blades. Okay, we're getting close to the end now. Southampton is the next one. Spygate FC. I feel for the fans. I really, really do. I mean, they're going to be absolutely tormented by every single home team that they have to travel to this season. And the first game, funnily enough, for the Saints is at Watford, my team. And I'm actually going to be missing it because I'm on holiday. So kind of gutted I don't get to taunt all the Southampton fans. But no, in all seriousness, it's a mess. It really is a mess. And Southampton have doubled down in their backing of Tonda Eckert, which, I don't know, it's not a great look. It's not a great look. And starting on -4 points is pretty funny. And even if Southampton beat Watford, which I suspect they probably will, they'll still be on -points, Southampton. But I mean, they're bound to have a good season, aren't they? The squad is just a ridiculous level. Will they, though, struggle to stay with those top two? Because there's some more big teams we've got to talk about in this league still. So I don't think they get top two. Do they get playoffs? I reckon. I reckon their squad is good enough to get playoffs. I'm going to go for them to finish 7th. I think, with all that's going on at the club, I think that has to play a factor in affecting their form, unfortunately. And do they have enough proven goal scorers in that team? Maybe, but I'm not so sure. I'm a bit hesitant. Obviously, Manning had a good season last season, so he'll hope to be good again. I don't know. It's a tricky one. Obviously, they've lost the likes of Armstrong, who went off to Wolves. I don't know where my pessimism is there, but it feels like a dark cloud for the Saints. And I know it's not just about what's going off the pitch, but I think that will affect things on it. So I'm going to go 7th, which is still an okay season, but not as good as they would have hoped for the Saints. Okay, that will get them a playoff spot. So, you never know what could happen in the playoffs. Next up, it's Stoke City. Now, Stoke City are a really weird team to figure out as well, because Tony Mowbray, obviously, the situation with him is very good manager, rate him. He's gone to Blackburn. Now, obviously, Tony Mowbray had a little spell at West Brom. He had a spell at Birmingham City. He's moved around the clubs. You compare the situation to Stoke City, and you look at someone like Mark Robins, who obviously was a legend at Coventry. Now, just like Mowbray, Robins knows how to win games in the Championship. He's a very solid manager, right? The problem for me is not Tony Mowbray, though. Oh, sorry, Mark Robins. It's not the problem. The problem for me is the squad. I look at that squad and I think they finished 17th last season. So going into this season, they really got to have a better window. And I don't know. I'm not so sure about their squad. I mean, looking at it, there's a couple of good players. Even like a Ben Gibson or maybe a Sorba Thomas or an Aaron Cresswell. But there's no game changers in there, ultimately, when push comes to shove. And then you look at their signings over the summer, and Mark Robins obviously would want to make a few big signings, but I don't know. I'm not massively fussed by their signings. Just trying to find them now. Sorry, people. But I just don't know what to think, really. I don't know what to think with them. It's a little bit crazy. It's a little bit messy. They could have a good season, but I'm just trying to picture how well Stoke do in 26-27, and I don't see them being in the playoff conversation, to be perfectly honest. I don't see them keeping out enough goals to start with, or scoring enough. Obviously, they have had previous good loans, like players like Mubama. Obviously, he's now back at Man City. They made some good bits of business, but you look at the window now. It's player released, player released, player released, player released, out on loan. Luke Graham. Who's Luke Graham? I hear you ask. A centre back from Dundee. Okay. Ethan Galbraith, Swansea. Okay. Right back. Meh. All right, not too bad. Svante Ingolson. I knew I'd get it eventually. Chef Wednesday, centre mid. Okay. I mean, sure. Joshua Griffiths, keeper. Okay. Jibril Sumare, centre mid from Braga. Jury's out. Milan Schmidt from Go Ahead Eagles. I just don't know. I don't know. And Lewis Baker's gone and been released, and Zonzi's gone. I don't know. It's the jury's out with Stoke, and I think the same conversation I said with QPR, I think it's similar with Stoke. I think they could genuinely finish anywhere between like 11th and 17th. So we're going to go for 14th for Stoke City. I think it'll be an okay season, but ultimately not enough to get top half. So they're going to just slot ahead of QPR just there. All right, now moving on. We have got the next team, and that is Swansea City. Now, Swansea City are a very interesting one this summer because one of the stars of the World Cup was a certain Elijah Just for New Zealand. That is a great signing. I mean, a lot of clubs would have looked at him and thought, you know what, he was good at Motherwell last season. Let's see if we can get him. And they did it. They did it. Fair play to Swansea City. Fair play to Vitor Matos because they did have good periods of last season. And I think, they're decent. They're a decent side. They finished 11th, which, is not to be sniffed at. It's not terrible. And if playoffs were as they are this season, that's only 3 spots off getting the playoffs. So, a bit more consistency maybe is needed for the Swans, but they're not too far away from being in the conversation. Now, in terms of Swansea City at the moment, how do I see them with their transfers? Well, Just is great. Outside of Elijah Just, meh. Stephen Walsh, Statham Bowen from Brentford, never heard of him. Joe Davies from Peterborough, okay, interesting. I'm not massively fussed. However, and it's a big however, they are being linked with Ross Stewart, formerly Southampton. If that is done, that is a great signing because he knows how to score goals. Like, fair play. So, it could be still a decent season for Swansea, honestly. I rate it. I rate it. In terms of the rest of the squad, when I look at Swansea City, I think they're decent. Now, obviously, their striker last season was an absolute joke. I forget what his name was now. Is he still there? Oh, Ross Stewart has joined. Wow, fair play. When did that happen? That happened just as I'm recording. Stewart and Southampton, and then Swansea. Where did he join Swansea? 6th of August. Yep, it's literally just happened. Ross Stewart's joined. So this is justifying why I'm putting Swansea as high as I'm about to put them. I mean, they could be higher than this, but I think they'll be in the conversation for playoffs. But then I think right at the end of the season, we'll just slightly fall short and finish 13th. But honestly, Swansea, you could finish a bit higher. It's just the only reason I put Swansea 13th is the teams above them, I think, will just have that overall star quality a little bit more. But like I said, it's going to be tight this championship season. I think, there's not going to be big gaps between teams in terms of points. So, just because there's a big gap between positions doesn't mean there's a big gap between points. So I'm going to go 13th for the Swans, but they could well finish mid-table or even higher, definitely. So we're going to slot them just there ahead of Stoke City if we can, if it allows us to. There we go. Right, now, final 5 teams. Watford, my team, the Hornets. Oh, where do I start? It's a little bit messy at my football club. It's been the way probably for about 5-6 years, messy at that football club. But yeah, particularly this year, going into the 26-27 season, we are in a bit of a sticky position because we've let go of our women's team. We've sold our women's team to another investor, a US investor called Pitch 15. because we just don't have much dosh. We've also taken away our under-21s team so that they don't compete in the professional development league. Again, I'm just thinking we're so strapped for cash that we're having to do these measures. It's concerning. The window we've had so far, it's not great, in all honesty. A couple of decent signings, I think. Jordan Zamura, particularly, was promoted with Bournemouth and is good left-back cover. So that's all right. Championship experience, at least, for somebody. We also got in Martin Pajero, formerly played at Middlesbrough, was a Udinese player, of course. So our constant reliance on bringing in players from Udinese and the culture of that football club, I don't see it changing. I mean, it might, and I might be sitting here, in May 2027 and said we're a Premier League club, but it doesn't feel likely. I mean, playoffs, we weren't far off playoffs, certainly at the turn of the year. We looked like one of the best potential teams for playoffs. Javi was playing some great football with us. We went on a 4-game winning run, I think it was. And you thought, right, this is class. We've got everything we need to get playoffs, at least. And we just did what we do every season, which is fall off a cliff January onwards. And the form is just abysmal. And all the players just down tools and don't even have the fight to even give it a go because they know that there's going to be 3 managers a season. So stability is the key word. We need stability. We need identity. We've said it every season, but it happens again and again and again because Gino Pozzo is too arrogant and too delusional in thinking this club deserves to be a Premier League club. We're just not a Premier League club. It's simple as that. We need to get some momentum. We need to build. We need a project. We need to make some progress. We need a direction. But every time you make managers changes, there's no clear direction and you keep going backwards. And eventually it will catch up with us to a point where we're losing money, we're sacking managers, we're not bringing in players that want to play for the badge because there's no desire to play for any manager because there's a back in the mind thought of, well, they're not going to last long, so I might as well not connect with this manager. So therefore, why should I play for him when I'm going to get the money anyway? Eventually that will spiral to a point where we're going to get relegated. Now, do I think we'll get relegated this season? Probably not. I think we're going to get away with it, hopefully, because there's enough clubs that are worse than us. But that is unfortunately, lucky for us. Unfortunately, quality in your squad should be a factor. But the most important factor is playing as a team. And that's not what we've seen for Watford for a good number of years now. So I'd rather we finished lower but played more like a team. Even if we finished lower than last season, so we finished, 18th, but we played and battled and we actually played well, even if we do lose games, it would be encouraging. We'd see an identity. We'd be able to buy into it. And then we rebuild. We rebuild with that same identity, but this is Watford we're talking about, so I don't feel confident. I'm frustrated that we have so many good players, but they can't play well together. We have good wingers, but they're not good for the striker we've got. We need to give Luka Kierango service, and our wingers are not good at giving that. They're not good at linking up with them. We haven't got those relationships in the squad. I mean, Massey Pollock is about the only player who can hold his head up high when it comes to attitude and mindset. He's got, a passion for the club, and he's now been given the captaincy, which is absolutely perfect. But the other players need to get to his level. They need to raise their standards. And the signings we've made, Ika Bravo could be exciting. I mean, he's a raw talent. He's 21, right? But player of the tournament at the Under-19s Euros in 2024 for Spain. It's the year of Spain, of course, with them winning the World Cup. Talking of which, we've got an Argentinian with Pajero, who, look, Pajero could be great. He could also be a walking red card. So we'll have to see if he's a tough midfielder that improves our attack or, improves our defence. Who knows? We've also brought in a goalkeeper, Ravagli, which I really do like. He's a very tall keeper, which is good to have. Is he going to be the number one? Is Selvik going to get on the bench? I just don't know at this stage. And my guesses would be Selvik would be number one at the start, and then we have a competition between the two. But I don't know. It's a tricky one. It is a tricky one because Selvik can be a really solid championship keeper. Some games he has won the saves and keeps us in games. He won a lot of points for us at stages last season and definitely the season prior. But then the next game he could have a clanger. So he's solid. He's good. I'm happy with him. Don't necessarily want to drop Selvik, but if Ravagli's been brought in as a starter, then fair enough. We'll see how it develops. I think Traore's a good buy. I've heard good things about him. Hopefully he can adapt to the championship level. We do have a lot of injuries to our fullbacks a lot of the time. And Gakia has barely had pre-season, so I don't know where he'll come in these first few games. But yeah, we've only got 2 left backs. So we've brought in Zamura. We've got Boller. I imagine Mark Boller will start, but Zamura's going to give him good competition. And then it's where we sort of go with that midfield because there's so many options. We've got Pajero, we've got Loser. Will Loser stay? Because now Irankunda's gone to Sporting. Will Loser just think, you know what, I might as well do the same? Because for a while now, he's not been his best. He obviously did win Player of the Season somewhat recently, the season before last. Pollock deservedly winning last season, but he's not been the player he has shown in flashes. He's not been consistent enough, Loser. And if you don't want to play for the football club, you shouldn't be here. So it's all about the dressing room. We need to get that dressing room back to a harmonious place and a dressing room that buys into the manager. We need the manager to win over the players. And it sounds ridiculous because players should give their best, whoever the manager is. But ultimately, we need players to connect to a manager because otherwise they are just going to down tools. So do I think we're going to get playoffs? No. I'll put that out there and make it clear. I'm not going to get deluded and say we're going to get in the playoffs because there's so many good teams in this division this season. Do I think we're going to get relegated? No. Do I think we're going to finish mid-table? Probably not. But because I'm an optimist, I'm going to just edge towards us getting in mid-table. So I've predicted us to finish 11th. It's probably a lot higher than some what fans are saying. Probably 15th, 13th, 14th, 17th. Even 19th potentially. And some people have got us going down, but they had us going down last season. Opta said we would go down. I mean, we were nowhere near going down last season. Yes, we were poor in the last half of the season, but we didn't have any sort of danger really of relegation. And I hope that's not the case either this season. But I'm going to go with 11th. It's optimistic, but I'm an optimist. So with the players we've got, we should have a chance at least of finishing 11th. We've got good players, but we need a team and we need stability. Finally then, final 4, West Brom. West Brom are a team that really struggled last season and at stages you thought they're gone, they're going to go down. But in the end, they did enough. They brought in someone who knows the club and is a solid piece of appointment in Morrison. So will West Brom kick on and be in the playoff conversation? I think it's unlikely. I think they'll need another season to stabilise and rebuild and get a bit better. But I look at their business. I'm not loving it. I'm not loving it, to be honest. Obviously, 21st is not what you want to do. You only just stay up. It's a nightmare season for them last season. But Morrison did well because it looked like they were gone. However, going into this season, you have to capitalise on staying up by making good signings. And you look at their signings. Jimmy J. Morgan, I've heard good things about. He used to be at Chelsea. Barney Stewart, never heard of, but apparently he's from Falkirk. Connor Townsend makes sense. Used to be at the club. Solid player, left back from Ipswich. But the rest, I've never heard of. I mean, Carter Pennington. Okay. Matt Ingram. Yeah, okay. Not too shabby. But they really need to go for it this season. They really do, West Brom. And I don't think they're going to get mid-table. But I also don't think they're going to go down. So, for that reason, I've put them in 17th. I think they'll be comfortably bottom half, but not quite good enough to get any higher than that. So, now we move to the final 3 teams, and this is the first of the final 3 Premier League clubs. We've already done Burnley from last season. Now West Ham. Now West Ham have not been in the Premier League, the Championship since 2012. I mean, it's historic stuff, really is. This is a weird feeling for West Ham fans. It would have been even weirder if it was Tottenham that I'd be talking about right now, but hey ho, wasn't to be. I would have loved it. I would have loved it, but that's football sometimes. You got to just take it as it comes. So West Ham keeping Bowen is seismic, absolutely seismic. Now, people will say that Bowen's form at the end of the season was a bit poor, but come on, let's not mess around here. This is the Championship we're talking about. It's a great league, but Jared Bowen, he's Premier League quality. Like, he should, if he stays fit, obliterate this league. There's no doubt in my mind. He's a quality player for the Championship. And he's probably going to get top scorer, let's be honest. Let's see if he does stay, because if Man United or Chelsea came in for him in January and West Ham are in the trouble zone, it will really test things. It really will. Of course, he loves the club, and of course, he says he's going to stay, but, let's see. Do West Ham win the league? It's tricky. It is tricky because, again, there's going to be a drop-off. Financially, they're going to have a bit of wriggling around to do, but you get the parachute payments. So, I don't know. It's a Premier League club, really, West Ham, let's be honest. They've been in the Premier League for so long, and they're in the Championship. So, they've got more spending power than most clubs. I think West Ham will win the league, honestly. I think they're going to definitely get top 4. If they don't get top 4, I think that's a failure of a season for someone who is good at getting teams out of the Championship in Nuno Espirito Santo. And I think they're going to win the league. I think Jared Bowen, I'm not saying he could win the league on his own, but when you have someone of that ilk, of that class, you're going to score goals. Now, can they keep them out? Maybe that's the argument. Maybe that's where West Ham could struggle. But you look at their attackers. I mean, if Souček stays, great player for the Championship. I mean, he is just set piece FC. He's quality from those. Players like Walker Peters, perfect for the Championship. So you would imagine West Ham at least finish top 3, surely. They could finish 3rd, they could finish 2nd and get that second automatic spot. And the team I'm about to predict could be the league title winners. But no, I'm going to side toward West Ham. Wolves were the other team I considered for that title. I mean, they've made some good signings, I have to say. Raul Jimenez coming back to where he loved playing, scoring goals, cult hero for them. Trippier, he might be getting on, but for the Championship, very good signing. Very, very good signing. And then I think they've done another couple of deals. I forget now. Obviously, naturally, being a Premier League club for a while, Wolves, they have got some ridiculous players for this level. Like players like Andre. I mean, he should be one of the best players in the league. You would think. But will be interesting. Will be interesting to see how Wolves get on. And certainly with Wolves, they've gone back to their sort of old recruitment policy. Because, previously it was just hire the Portugal national team. Get Wolves players and get Portuguese managers. And they've done that. They've got in Portuguese manager in the form of César Peixoto. César Peixoto, who was previously at Vitória Guimarães as a sort of youth player. And then in terms of his managerial career, had a bit of time at Gil Vicente, Morense. So, yeah, I've seen a few of, being Portuguese, I've seen a few of the teams in the Portuguese league. Gil Vicente are interesting. I mean, obviously he was there for a season. They finished 6th in the Primeira Liga. I mean, that is like fair play. So I'd be surprised if he's not a solid manager at least. Whether or not it's enough in the Championships, it's a big step up. But you'd have to think Wolves are in the top 4 at least. Again, the quality of their squad, some of their signings have been really good. They'll be in the conversation for sure. So I've got them in 3rd. I think they just miss out. I think Middlesbrough will have a really good season, and so I think they'll just miss out on playoffs. On automatics, but they get third. And let's be honest, they probably win the playoffs. I think of all those teams in the playoffs that I've predicted, I think they are the best team. And talking of all those teams in the playoffs, I've realised it feels like I've got. Oh no, sorry. I've had a bit of a mare here. I was thinking I feel like I haven't got enough playoff teams, but it's third to fourth, so it's all good. But I think Wolves probably win it through the playoffs, and then Wrexham, who are really interesting. Obviously, by this point, there's only one spot left, which is in that ninth to 12th spot. Do I put Wrexham above Norwich City? Do I put them above Watford, above Bristol City, or below them all? I will have Wrexham in 10th. I think Norwich will have a really good season. And Wrexham, fair play to them because they were really good last season. They had a little bit of an FA Cup run as well. And nearly got playoffs. Weren't far away at all. But I think there's going to be a little bit of a drop off this season. Because I don't think they can sustain it. I think ultimately there's a lot of good teams who have been Championship experienced in previous seasons. Wrexham have only had one season in the Championship. Let's not forget that. They overachieved. So I think they're going to have a slightly worse season than last season. But, 10th is still very good for a team like Wrexham in the grand scheme of things. But when you think, promotions, you start getting excited. So 7th last season was still an incredible achievement. So close to those playoffs. Slight drop off. So that is Phil Parkinson's side. Our final prediction. That's how I think the Championship will end in 2026-27. Get in the comments who is going to get relegated, who's winning the league, and who is going up alongside that title winner, and of course who is winning the playoffs, which is now featuring those big number of teams. We're going to have 6 teams in the playoffs. It's going to be fascinating stuff. Will it be a success? Will it be a mess? Let's find out. But top scorer in the season of the Championship, I'm going to go for, because I think West Ham will do well, Jared Bowen. Doesn't surprise many people. But top assister, this one's a bit trickier, because there's a lot of good creative players from these teams. You look at the top assist charts, obviously, that Swansea player, I've already forgotten his name from last season, who got the top scorer points. But top assists from Championship, I think I predicted Rudoni last season, and in the end he was quite far off, which was a little bit of a shame. But it is what it is. But there are a few playmakers now. Gustavo Harmer will be really interesting. Does he leave Sheffield United and go to Coventry in the Premier League? Because he was the top assister last season. You got Sorba Thomas as well, who had a very good season when it comes to assists. I don't know. It's a tricky one. I think ultimately, when all's said and done, I think tricky, isn't it? Do I think a Southampton player? I've got them finishing 7th. It feels like I need someone finishing higher to get the most assists. All right. You know what? I'm gonna take a punt here. It's a bit of a punt. I'm gonna go for a Middlesbrough player. I'm going to go Morgan Whittaker. I think Middlesbrough have a really good season, so I'm going to go Morgan Whittaker to get the most assists in 26-27. Got 7 assists last season. I think he can do even better this season. And most clean sheets? Well, that's a question. That is a question, because obviously Coventry smashed it last season with Carl Rushworth. He's now made the permanent move in the Premier League. Who do I have a good defence? I think Wolves will. I think Wolves will have to, based on how poor they were last season, tighten up that defence. And I think they'll go back to basics. I think they will definitely get the most clean sheets. And as a result, I'm backing that the top goals, kept out, top clean sheets will be Mr. Dan Bentley. I believe he'll be number 1 for Wolves. I hope so, at least. But whoever the Wolves keeper is, I think will be most clean sheets. Shall I predict a number? I'll go 14 clean sheets. It does feel quite low, that, but I'm going to stick with it. 14 for Dan Bentley, or the Wolves keeper, is how we're going for it. those are our predictions then for the Championship 2026-27. Be sure to watch out for my match week 1 score predictions, which we will get to in another video. But if you haven't already, smash a like on this one. Comment your table predictions and your season predictions. Who you think is going to get top scorer. And we'll see you in the next one. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye, everybody.